So how good of a president do you think Barack Obama would make?
Well, let me put it like this. He'd be a much better president than the clown we have in office right now. But of course, I think Bozo the Clown would be a better president than the clown we have in office right now.
So what does he got to do to make up ground on Hillary?
Well, I'm just going to tell you the truth about it. I don't think this country is ready for a woman president or a black president. You know, both of them are doing well in the polls right now, and both of them are raising a lot of money. But I think it's all window dressing, and the country is a lot farther along than I would have thought a year or two ago, but I still don't think we're ready. I think in 10 years, this country may be ready for a woman or a black president, but not right now.
Really?
No.
You just don't think that Hillary stands a chance?
I think when some people get in that booth, you know, their antipathy toward, and they're going to use it to say, well, I just don't like Hillary. But I think what it will be is that they just don't think a woman is president. A lot of countries around the world have women leaders, but I just don't think we're ready for that yet. That's not saying a woman isn't ready to lead this country. I don't think this country is ready to be led by a woman.
Well, what's it going to take for us to get to that place?
I just think the passage of time and a lot of the people with these old ingrained ideas will die off in another 10 years or so. And I think a new generation of people and a different culture will come to the fore.
I wish that were true, and I hope it is true, but I tell you, with this recent spate of just outright ignorance on the part of some of these kids, you know, these aren't older folks that are doing this. This is their kids and grandkids.
But they're getting it from the older people, and I think that it's a progress. I mean, it's going to take time for it to happen, but I just don't think we're ready for that right now.
Well, I would disagree with you there. I think that this country is ready for it. It'll be interesting to see how Hillary and Barack do. I think they're definitely the leading contenders for the Democratic National Party.
Well, I certainly hope you're right, though. I hope I'm wrong and that you're right.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your books and getting your columns turned into books. What's that process like?
Well, right now I'm in the process of putting out a book, and I have to go, it's going to be a collection of my columns, as was my first book, which was entitled Do Unto Others and Then Run. And I haven't come up with a title for the new book yet, but the hard part is over the last 7 to 8 years, I've written maybe 1,200 columns. And I have to go through all of those and pick out the best 250 columns. And that's the hard part, because I like to think that I like all of my columns, but you have to be objective or subjective about it and pick out some over others. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the role of these internet bloggers and podcasts in Louisiana recently. Let's talk a little bit about how that role fits in with the future of print newspapers. How are the two going to come together, these online bloggers and traditional print newspaper columnists?
Well, Stacey, I tell you, people have been predicting the demise of newspapers for probably the last 50 or 60 years, and newspapers are still here, and I think they will always be here, because I think it's something about holding a news. A lot of people do get their news off the internet, but until you can take a computer into the bathroom with you, I think there'll always be a place for newspapers.
So regional papers like the News and Observer, they have a good survival chance for the next 50 years?
I think so, because I think newspapers can cover things. We can't cover it with the immediacy of television, but we can go more in depth than television can. And we can, I think both of those can work together, but I think newspapers will always be here.
Well, we've got about 3 minutes left, I'm being told, from the studio control room. So what is the cause? You know, as I'm sitting at home thinking about this most recent tension racially that's been going on in the country and praying about it and thinking about it myself, I've wondered, what is the cause of it? Is it multiple factors coming together? You know?
Well, I don't think it's new. I just think it's the fact that, like the Jenna 6 situation, I think it just got picked up by talk radio and bloggers, and they were able to focus attention. Normally, this would have been an incident that wouldn't have gone beyond the confines of Louisiana. But I think because of the internet and bloggers and talk radio and the grassroots effort, I think that's what propelled it nationally.
I think you're right, and I think additionally, you know, we do have a black man running for president who is a viable contender, I would say.
Well, he would tell you he's biracial. He wouldn't say he's black. So his dad is African and his mom is white. So
just to be perfectly clear about it. And then, of course, OJ is back in the news, not in a good way of recent. So what's your take on OJ's most recent debacle?
I have no take on OJ. I mean, OJ never, if you hadn't mentioned him, OJ would not enter my mind. Or maybe when I go eat breakfast and I pour a glass of OJ. But OJ Simpson is my consciousness. And when people were, you know, I was reading back in 95 or 94 when he was accused of killing his wife and her friend. People were saying that all the polls showed that black people thought he was innocent. I didn't know one black person who thought he was innocent. So I don't know where these polls were coming. And I think they were used to intentionally polarize the issue and to sell advertising on televisions and sell newspapers. I don't know one black person who thought OJ was innocent.
We got about a minute and a half, I'm being told, from the control room. So let's talk a little bit about what advice you would give to, you know, a high school kid watching us today who says, man, I'd like to write for a newspaper. What should they do?
Well, my son wants to be that, you know, but he's a freshman in college right now, and he's a journalism major. And I was trying to convince him to be an English major, as I was, because I think English is going to be important regardless of what field one goes into. But he's a journalism major, and I told him he needs to read a lot, read people even with whom he disagrees, and when he does write, have a definite, strong opinion, because there's nothing worse than reading a newspaper columnist, and you get to the end of the columnist, and you still don't know what the heck they were thinking or how they feel about an issue.
I guess that's a major difference between being a political figure and being a newspaper columnist. As a columnist, you really do need to provoke people to at least think, if not to action.
Yeah, why not? I mean, why read the column if you're not going to think about, you know, if you're not going to prompt people to, you want to make them laugh or think or spur them to action. If the column doesn't do one of those three things, it was a waste of time.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today, Barry. I'm your host, Stacey Cochran. For all of us here at the Artist Craft and Raleigh Television Network Channel 10, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure.